Hey, hello, and welcome. I don't know if you could hear that. So as I said, hey, she started to fucking whine. Currently, JP on getting first. Dude, the craziest thing ever would be to actually get to the stream and not redeeming first. That is actual craziness. Welcome in, everyone. Ow, that's my hand. You cannot bite it. Don't do that. No, you can't bite your tail either. Hello. What happened to you? So calm, and then I say, hey, and she's like, Willow. Good. Exactly. Imagine coming first. They're not even redeeming it. Welcome. Today we will attempt to get through our daily soldier's life chapters, which is what I hope to do. I will do my best. I hope we can do it. Oh, I've been in bed almost like all morning. As Verbinton said, it is indeed 11:30 soon. We woke up at 5:30 around that time, and I've just been in bed since then. I've had 2 tiny walks with her. That's fucking it. I asked her 3 times, do you want to go on a walk? And then she looked at me, and then I went to get her collar, and then she looked at it, and then she ran up the bed. It's like, fuck that. I'm like, okay. Word. So I also stayed in bed. Like, fuck this. I'm not going out. It's cold, and I don't wanna. But now I decided, fuck it, I will at least attempt to do a reading stream. Yay! So let's attempt, because I am scared that we're getting a time skip now. I don't want that. I don't like that. But we will see after our little recap that we will do. Yes, very much so. I hope it continues after this. Yeah. And then my voice will be able to keep up for all these chapters. Please. Okay, yawn. Okay, let's go. Last time on A Soldier's Life, we met Renna. We fed 2 poor kids. We saw Cinna naked. We met an old armor smith who seems cool, and we decided to learn a new spell, Earth Speak. Epic recap. So let's go. Chapter 191. Let's get cooking. I guess there is no time skip then, please. The 3 mages cleaned as I prepared dinner for them. Oh, let's go. I also worked on a separate meal for Cinna using my dungeon harvest. Neither meal was complicated, as I put my mediocre cooking skills to use. For Renna, Floria, and Livia, it was rice with diced smoked ham and a cheese sauce. Oh, cheese sauce? For Cinna, it was a thin sliced fire bear roast and a thick gravy made from fat, butter, and flour. I burned my one attempt at a loaf of bread. The thermal stone worked by adjusting a vent to regulate the hot air in the oven, but it didn't have any markings. I needed to experiment more to get it to the correct temperature and make my own marks on the device. When the sun set, the mage students were again filthy from a hard afternoon's work. Sunset marked the end of their punishment for the day. I served the 3 mages massive portions. Renna complimented me, smiling. You prepared us a nice meal. Thank you. Personally, I doubted the food was better than what the Mage College offered, since they served first citizens. They had been working hard on the cleaning, and I hadn't had time to check on their progress. How far did you get with the cleaning? I asked as I sampled a small bowl of slightly overcooked plain white rice. Oh, not overcooked rice. Ugh. Flora groaned. At this rate, it's going to take us a week, but it's worth it if you're cooking this much food for us. Her expression shifted from annoyance to a smile. I'm looking forward to learning from Chancellor Cinna, Livia said, as she spooned more of the rice and diced ham onto her plate. Where did her last full plate disappear to? She then smothered it, using most of the remaining cheese sauce. Watching them eat the hot meal gave me the idea that I could prepare meals and store them while they were still hot, like when I stored the meat pie in matcha or the fresh bread in Sobro. Either I could cook these future meals myself or have a much better cook prepare them for me. But it would be good to have quality meals on the march without having to cook. Not like Lurkin had been a lousy cook. He was excellent, but it usually took him over an hour to prepare a decent meal for the company on the move, and twice that with the kitchen. I was thinking ahead for my time with the hounds. If I were alone in the wild, my time would be better spent elsewhere, rather than preparing a substandard meal. I couldn't believe it as I watched the 3 mages eat everything I prepared. 12 cooked cups of rice, 2 pounds of diced ham, and a quart of cheese sauce. The cheese sauce was just a hard cheese that smelled and tasted like Parmesan, which I dissolved in heavy cream over heat and seasoned with pepper and cumin. At least I think that other spice had been cumin. Is that all you're going to eat? Renna asked of me guiltily. pausing the shovel going to her mouth. I ate while I cooked, I replied, encouraging her to finish. That was true, and it was my favorite little white lie. The ring of sustenance was dulling my appetite, and it was an incredible artifact that somehow converted ether to sustaining my body. It allowed me much less sleep and all 1/3 less food. I was like, oh, a third, and 1/3 less food. I could tell it was drawing ether from the environment since it was comfortably warm on my finger. I frequently covered it in charcoal dust to conceal its shiny brilliance, but it made my hands look dirty. When I got my spider silk gloves, it would fix this issue. A knock in the common room had me excuse myself from the unabashed gluttony. The porter I sent for cooking recipes stood there. Sorry, sir, my wife did her best, but most recipes are passed by word of mouth. A few of her acquaintances wrote out some of their favorites here. He produced a folio with 24 sheets. He also had 3 slightly stained books. I read the titles. Recipes of the Bhutan Caliphate, traditional Eryk dishes. 100 regional breads from across the continent. Cooking with Eryk. 50 recipes a baron would enjoy. 50 recipes a baron would enjoy. Beautiful names. Thank you for your effort. I took the books in a loose sheet. Another thought occurred to me. Can you find out if there is someone in the city familiar with roasting kava beans? Kava beans, he replied, confused. They are found far to the south and need to be prepared in a special manner. Fermenting and roasting, I think. I had checked in my dreamscape and I didn't have the knowledge from Earth to draw on. I will do my best, Legionnaire, the porter said with a nod. He looked delighted as he left, since I hadn't asked for any of the coins back, even with his meager offering of recipes. I tried to recall if I had ever seen a recipe book on Earth to put into the dreamscape. I thought the answer was no, but the dreamscape would confirm that. I might have searched for a few recipes online when trying to impress a date, but that was about it. Very impressive. Hello, Diamond Cat. Yes, it has been a while. Good day to you. Welcome back. Are you done now, dog? Otherwise, I'll put something in front of the window so you can't do that. Hmm? I returned with my recipe collection to find Cinna seated expectantly at the head of the table. I retrieved the pot of sliced beef and thick gravy from the kitchen, and she didn't look impressed. The other mages had gone quiet now that Cinna had appeared. I was guessing she had some teleportation magic that was allowing her to sneak into her bedroom suite because she most certainly didn't enter through the common room. She tried the meat and chewed it for a while. It's a bit tough. Maybe cook it on low for a few hours next time. She continued eating and didn't comment again. I could tell she wasn't enjoying the food itself, but the extra benefits of the dungeon harvest. Between bites, she conversed with everyone at the table. I just came from a meeting with the other 3 chancellors. She looked pointedly at Flora and Livia. There will be training runs for the mage aspirants in 2 weeks. Just some simple game hunting. She turned to Rana. You are being sent to the eastern woods, across the river, to hunt gnolls in 3 weeks. I'm not ready, Rana squealed in shock. 6 instructors and 20 legionnaires will accompany your class. We need battle-tested mages because we'll need you sooner rather than later, Cinna said sternly, cutting off any further protest. She didn't like being questioned. Will I be one of the legionnaires sent to guard them? I asked, getting Cinna's attention. We can talk later, the fire mage said, killing the conversation while she turned her attention to the chewy dungeon meat. She looked at the mages. You are dismissed. At breakfast tomorrow, drop your tray of food on First Citizen Lucia while walking to your seat. I will be there to discipline you. To discipline you. Although Cinna was expressionless, I couldn't help but smirk. She was helping them be assigned to work here while getting some revenge on one of their apparent antagonists. And me? Rena asked eagerly. You can accidentally attack me in class with Flame Spear, Cinna said evenly. Rena's eyes widened and she whined. I haven't finished learning those spell forms yet. Cinna arched an eyebrow. Then you better finish learning them tonight. Go. The 3 mage students scurried away like scolded children. I think Cinna was a big softy underneath and was helping them the best she could. So, what is the big secret? I asked as we heard the door close. Cinna relaxed in her chair. She turned over her thoughts. There are some things they are better off not hearing and spreading rumors about. It is thought the Caliphate orcs are planning to land and press for the ruins of Atlantium. We don't know where yet, but we are guessing they are waiting to see if we discover anything useful before launching an invasion. We have already detected their more powerful clerics scrying around Matcha. She sighed. The S&M elves have claimed the Abatalos Isle, and we cannot challenge them to retake it and also protect the ruins. They are waiting for us to discover something valuable before landing in the Empire. The Barbaradians are not waiting and are skirmishing with our forces. This is making both of us weaker for the elves and orcs. War is coming. Well, what does that mean for us? And for me, training with the hounds? I inquired while processing. The wheels of war turn slowly, but once the momentum builds, it becomes unstoppable, Cinna said, tapping her fingernail in cadence on the empty plate. The ruins over the swamp cover 30 square miles and are almost half a mile deep, so it will be some time before we find anything useful. From the last report, they have stopped excavating in favor of building defenses for the coming conflict. Will you be on the front lines? My question stemmed from selfishness. If she were, it meant I would have to go too, unless I had already been assigned to the hounds. No. The chancellors of Mage College are responsible for defending the city and the Imperial Palace, Cinna said heavily, sounding the pain of responsibility. I wondered, if this suite is for the War College chancellor, why was it empty for so long? Cinna replied curtly, I was the last War College chancellor. The Emperor doesn't always have a chancellor for each of the 4 college towers. She nodded to me. Chancellor Evander is sending over a crate of old alchemy books tomorrow. I told him I was dabbling again, even though he seemed skeptical. You can request what ingredients you need using my name. As a chancellor, I have a budget that I rarely use. Cinna stated dismissively. I suggest you focus on the simple potions for your future with the hounds. I nodded a thank you. What about the mage aspirants and Renna? Will they be safe on the hunt you mentioned? I asked. For some reason, I had this innate drive to protect the women. Cinna winced like she had been struck. You will not like this, but Antonia has plans for mage aspirant Livia. She needs a healer for one of her plans, and preferably a healer no one will miss. Oh. I considered the meaning of her words and asked, will she not survive Antonia's plan? Cinna looked apologetic. If I was cynical, then I could guess she was manipulating me by telling me enough truth to win my trust. She let out a long, slow sigh. I couldn't give you a truthful answer. The mission is not within Talian lands and may not even occur with everything else happening. I would not be a sacrificial pawn in Antonia's quest to replace the Emperor. I just nodded, playing along, but I would keep the young mage aspirants out of harm's way if I could. And what of the gnolls? Will Renna be safe? She gave me a knowing look. The gnolls themselves will not be overly dangerous, 20 at most. I am supervising the gnoll hunt. You will be able to keep an eye on Renna, as each mage will have a personal legionnaire protector. Renna has enemies among the other newly recognized mages. You might have your hands full, as they will be more dangerous than the gnolls. I thought Renna was promised to the Emperor's son. Oh right, oh my god, I forgot. Why is she being targeted like this? I asked, puzzled. That is exactly why she's being targeted. Jealousy, positioning for favors, and general dislike of a commoner passing them in status. Cinna replied heatedly. She turned the conversation, seeing I was becoming agitated. I talked to Master Mage Janus about essence consumption. My distaste for Talian politics faded, with the possibility of learning a shortcut to utilizing all the essences I had collected. What did he tell you? I asked a bit too eagerly. Cinna had caught me in an emotional swing. She smiled slightly. You can consume one of each type, physical, mental, and magic affinity essence in a day. The downside is that the essences draw on your body reserves to catalyze the essence. This means the essences will likely be less effective if used together. That's why consuming only one essence daily is suggested, giving your body time to recover. Cinna waited as I processed the information before explaining further. Your body's ability to process an essence is like this cup. She placed a small teacup from the table in front of her. A minor essence is like this pitcher of water. She took a pitcher and filled it to the brim with another. When you consume an essence, she poured the pitcher quickly into the cup, with most of the water spilling over the table. You are unable to catch most of it, and much of the energy disappears. With a quick spell, the water steamed and vanished, leaving just a full glass. So, pouring 3 pitchers into a single glass is a waste. And to answer your next question, major essences and apex essences are just purer, refined water, but will also overflow. So all I need is a bigger glass then? I questioned. Cinna laughed musically. There are convergence spells that can give you a bigger glass, but I am sorry to disappoint you, as they must be utilized as a spell form. The essences are filtered through your body, and you need at least 40 affinity to imprint them. I don't think there are 5 mages in the Empire with a convergence affinity that high, and they all choose a different spell form for drawing ether from ley lines and the environment more effectively. That is unfortunate, I said, acting mollified. I already had that spell form, but was not going to reveal it. Cinna nodded conciliatorily. Be aware that if consume the same essence repeatedly, you will start to experience diminishing returns in time. How many essences before that happens? It varies from person to person, and each attribute differs for everyone, she said uncertainly. The information was extremely valuable. My spell form was obviously a significant advantage, and I couldn't understand why mages would choose the siphoning ether from ley lines instead of extracting the most from essences. Maybe essences were rare, or perhaps my super high affinity made the spell form manifold more valuable. Yeah, I mean, and everyone doesn't have a fucking essence collector. Like, that shit's super rare, no? I was anxious to experiment. I stood and started clearing dishes, nodding in thanks, and asked one last question for the evening. How are you getting back into the suite without using the tower stairs? Cinna smiled. An artifact linked to the bedroom that lets me return here from anywhere in the Mage College. Each Chancellor possesses one key to their own tower. She had just revealed that she could appear at any time, which was another indication of the trust we were building with each other. An hour later, I was locked in my small room, holding 2 minor essences. Oh, okay. Oh, puppy is good. Chapter 192. Guinea Pig. Holding the 2 essences, I realized I was now a guard, cook, maid, dishwasher, and babysitter. On the bright side, I was relatively safe and had privacy most of the day. Some legionnaires might find it demeaning, but I felt more like Alfred. What? Batman? I was ready to experiment with 2 minor essences in my grasp, the dexterity and earth essence. I had no minor essences for a mental attribute, but I saw this as an opportunity to experiment with these 2 minor attributes. Starting small had its advantages. It would allow me to gauge if I could effectively harness both essences simultaneously. If successful, I would attempt the 2 major essences next. I crossed both legs under me on the bed and concentrated on my ether core and my slightly burning ether channels. At least with the ether burn, it was straightforward to map the flow of ether in my body. After studying for over an hour, I consumed both essences at once. Oh my god. The sensation was completely different than usual. With my eyes closed, my vision swam with colors, and I associated specific colors with various essences. Brown flashes tasted like citrus. White triggered the smell of pine needles. I focused on the energy the essences spread through my body, ignoring the odd overwhelming sensory input. The essence raced along my other channels throughout my body like a superhighway, reinforcing areas and saturating others. I tried to see any bleed in the energy, but it moved too fast to track, and before I knew it, its work was done. I opened my eyes and moved to uncover the tablet reader. I utilized a dose of ether to activate it, and I read my results. My earth affinity had moved from 13 to 14, and my dexterity attribute went from 43 to 61 to 44 out of 61. So the good news was both minor essences had worked simultaneously, but I had not been able to observe if they were less effective if consumed individually. I could feel some minor indigestion and fatigue from their work, but less than consuming a single major essence. Of course, this was the first time I had focused so intently on the essence work, so I had nothing to compare it to. I covered the tablet reader and considered my past gains from a minor essence. Sometimes I got a single point in potential, but that was rare. Usually I received 1 or 2 points in the attribute. I decided tomorrow night I would try to consume 2 major essences and evaluate the results. I paged through the 3 cooking books and the dozen handwritten recipes to add to the dreamscape. I would probably never need to entertain orcs at a dinner party, but examining the culinary preferences of orcs when I have time would be interesting. The cookbook seemed to be authored by an explorer, as each recipe included an extensive description of where he had learned it and how it related to orc society. Food was definitely a unique way of exploring a race's culture. From the cooking book, I could tell the orc culture was complex. One recipe, for instance, could only be consumed by children. Another was consumed exclusively before a battle. Yet another involved their version of a mating ritual. Both the male and female consumed it, and the winner of a wrestling match following the meal was then considered the dominant partner in their union. Okay, that's good. A cold, quick shower later, and I was in the dreamscape. I manifested the cooking references and a few more books from the Kaelorian Metalsmith. Once I had copied all these books, I would look to get rid of them and clean up my dimensional space. Maybe Ignis would know someone interested in them. She had promised to keep the source of the spinneret secret, but she had not fully earned my trust yet. I found one book with a multitude of illustrations. It looked to be related to the techniques of making an intricate teapot. Maybe she wouldn't be interested in it, but I could test the waters with this one. My time in the dreamscape was divided between memorizing the Earth Affinity spell form and working with enchanted Constantine. Enhanced. His skill had doubled just by applying what I observed in the Imperial Training Yard during my visit to the blacksmith. That was somewhat unsettling, as my subconscious clearly perceived more than I did during the brief time I watched. I wanted to seek out and observe some spearmasters practicing in the future to improve my capabilities with the black spear. Maybe I missed hearing Constantine constantly criticize and correct me, as I only practiced with him this evening. I wondered how Maviet and the company were doing. They should be leaving soon to escort the magistrate. I exited the dreamscape and did my sword and spear forms in the common room again. Maybe I could clear one of the large guest bedrooms for my practice. There was one that had a large balcony facing the city. At sunrise, I returned to the alchemy lab to continue cleaning. Mid-morning, 3 crates of dusty alchemy books were delivered by 3 porters. 27 books in all. I cleared a shelf in the alchemy room and placed all the books there. It looked to be a complete collection for an alchemy student at the Mage College. Books on setting up apparatus and purification of ingredients were the most common among the books. After paging through the collection, I returned to cleaning the alchemy room. I lost myself in my work, and in mid-afternoon, a smiling Flora and Livia arrived. They were excited to tell the tale of how they had earned their punishment. They had chosen extra sauce for their gnocchi, and made a mess of a first citizen's robes. Before Lucia could lash out, Chancellor Sunna intervened and punished them with a week of cleaning in her apartments. Sunna had apparently put on quite a show in the dining hall, according to them, and Flora admitted she had peed herself a little. Men gud, nay. I winced internally. Sunna was winning the trust of these 2 young women. Livia would feel indebted to her and would probably volunteer to go on whatever mission Antonia had planned when Sunna asked her. It was difficult not to warn them. After talking with the excitable 2 mage aspirants, I switched from cleaning to cooking. My goal was to improve my baking skills today and figure out how to control the oven temperature. I opened the book on bread that I added to my dreamscape and was flustered by all the type contained within. For one, the breads were made from more than just wheat flour. Then there were flatbreads, focaccia, and loaves. Apparently, one of the most important ingredients was the type of yeast. I found 2 flatbread recipes that seemed easy enough. One was the familiar pita that Lurkin frequently served, and the other was a flour tortilla type. I also set some dough to rise with the yeast and focused on the 2 flatbreads that were made with a skillet. By sunset, I had tortillas and fresh pita flatbread. A quick dicing of vegetables and chicken, and the wraps had stuffing. Oh, tacos. I was surprised when Cinna arrived. Brenna never came today. Is she okay? I asked, concerned. I served Cinna a rolled tortilla filled with appleberry dungeon jam. Wait, appleberry tortilla? What? She's still working on the flame spear spell. She needs the motivation to work harder. She's a once-in-a-generation talent and may one day be a high mage herself. After she learned her first spell, she's grown complacent. She tasted the jelly roll and smiled, savoring it and smiling. But she smiled twice. Were the alchemy books delivered? She asked with a full mouth. They were. However, only some simple potion recipes were in the collection. Not sure making wart removal potions will be useful to me, I snorted. Senna scoffed a little. Senna scoffed a little too, quickly hiding a smile as Livy and Flora now stood at the archway, both filthy and salivating at the spread on the table. I motioned them forward. Help yourselves. Put a spoonful of the chicken and vegetable mixture on the bread, sprinkle it with the cheese, and fold it over into a wrap. The two attacked the table and ate somewhat noisily in front of us, like they were afraid they might be sent away at any moment. This is so much better than yesterday, Flora muttered through mouthfuls. Each of them finished 3 wraps before slowing down. Even Cinna tried a wrap, and I think she enjoyed it with her surprised expression. I needed to add more spices to the mixture to make a proper fajita, but it was still good. Flora sniffed the air. Is something burning? Oh, the bread. I swore as my loaf of bread was burning in the oven. Another fail. The 3 watched amusedly as I rushed to the kitchen to try and save the loaf. The mage aspirant had left when I returned with my smoldering dark loaf. Cinna smiled at my dismay. Having trouble with the oven? The heating seems uneven. I can't get a constant temperature if I have to cook anything in it for more than 10 minutes. Cinna stood and walked confidently into the kitchen. She spent a few minutes examining the oven before turning to me. A runic vent is missing. It controls the airflow. Without it, the oven would just continue to heat over time, getting hotter and hotter. I will get a replacement. I will also get you the Tier 1 alchemy recipe book for poisons as well when I return. I will be gone for the next 5 days, so you will be on your own. Do you have everything you need? With a confused expression, I asked, Where are you going, and why am I not accompanying you? I am just traveling to my villa in the hamlet I rule on the coast. Oh, yes, the hamlet that I rule. Okay, I need to get my affairs in order for an extended stay here and prepare my people to evacuate and flee south if the orcs or elves land nearby, Cinna explained, but I sensed some awareness. I think it was a note of sadness if not being there for her people. Okay. I remembered her undertones of anger when she came to hunt the summoner who had attacked her fishing hamlet by controlling the weather. I still thought I could go with her, but didn't press. I will be fine on my own. Can I clear out the south guest room to use as a training room? I asked. There were a few empty small storerooms on this floor where I could move the furniture. You can do whatever you want in any room except the master bedroom. I never thought I would take residence here again. For me, it was always just a place to sleep. I could tell there were more history Cinna was not telling me. She didn't look ready to open up further, so we just nodded as she withdrew to bathe. Later in the evening, I had 2 major essences in my hand, Earth and Dexterity. From what I understood, it was a large step up from a minor essence. Major essences were 10 times as effective. I retreated into my meditative focus and consumed the essences together. The rush this time was more intense, and I think I could feel the difference in purity as the essences worked through me. I had to ignore the dizzying array of colors, smells, scents, and tingles. Again, they had worked so fast that it was hard to track, but I was certain I had not metabolized everything this time. The question was whether this was a normal overflow or if I had lost some of my potential gains. Moments later, I stood over the tablet reader as my stomach did flips, and I chased some floaters in my vision with my eyes to steady myself. My recovery from metabolizing the essences took longer than normal, and even with the ring of sustenance, my hunger surfaced, but I gripped the reader anyway. My dexterity attribute had improved from 44 out of 61 to 46 out of 62, and the earth affinity had gone from 14 to 16. I considered both normal gains if I took a major essence alone. I didn't have any major essences for a mental attribute to test 3 in conjunction. Searching, I found that the only mental attribute in my essence stockpile was an apex essence for the insight attribute. I decided to increase my essence consumption again tomorrow evening, consuming an apex earth essence and a major dexterity essence. Walking around with a ball. Yeah. Sippy? I could already tell from my practice the small gains in dexterity were increasing my control and accuracy with the blade. Another factor in choosing dexterity for me was I knew that manual dexterity was also a factor in learning spell forms to cast actual spells. Mages learn by tracing the spell forms with their fingers in the air first. With enough practice, experienced mages could eventually create the spell forms without manipulating their fingers. But, to my knowledge and from my readings, they always created spell forms by channeling ether through their hands. The routine of my dreamscape, morning and day, continued. The alchemy lab was getting into good shape, and all the useless glassware was disposed of, and I wrote out a list of ingredients for the only recipe I knew: minty mouthwash. I needed to restock anyway. Flora and Livia arrived in the afternoon, but Renna had not returned. I guessed I would not see Renna again until Cinna returned and she could cast the flame spear spell. Flora and Livia were getting more comfortable around me, talking about their lives as mage aspirants. I was surprised they didn't focus much on the challenges they had faced. I knew they were being bullied, but they did not want to discuss that with me. I would eventually meet their tormentors and hadn't decided how I would respond yet. It was also nice that the two enjoyed my cooking, and maybe they would gain some weight due to my efforts. Currently, I was experimenting with various spices to try and make a decent fajita or burrito to add as a prepared meal to my dimensional storage. The two young women left after dark, and I was again alone. I consumed the Apex Earth Essence and Major Dexterity Essence, and the sensory overload flowing was much more intense than my prior experiments. Okay, not to be like that, but at this point, I almost kind of wish that there was some kind of time skip, because I was like, okay, now it's a lot of the same, just nothing. Okay. My other core seemed the most upset with the increase in my Earth affinity. I had only recently unlocked it, and I was constantly increasing it. My other core felt turbulent, like a maelstrom of energy with nowhere to go that was constantly being fed by the earth essence. As the seconds ticked by, I broke into a cold sweat and my nerves felt numb, but my body and ether channels quickly calmed with my ether core. What had taken seconds had felt like minutes to me. I hadn't even realized my heart was pounding as I had focused internally on the flow of the essence's workings. Finally, I was breathing steadily, and my body and ether core were completely calmed, and my hunger and thirst raged to replenish my body. I think this was my limit. One apex and one major essence. Maybe I could consume 3 major essences at once, but I first needed one major essence from the physical, mental, and magical affinities to attempt it. I took one unsteady step toward the reader before gaining my balance. My fine motor control was a bit numb, but it returned quickly. I tested myself. My earth affinity had increased by 3 points to 19. My dexterity attribute had increased from 46 out of 62 to 47 out of 63. That puzzled me for a while, as I had received +2 and then +1 yesterday evening and only +1 today. I didn't sense that I got any less benefit from this major earth essence than from the one from last evening. Cinna said there was a factor of diminishing returns from essences, so this is how I interpreted the lesser results. I just didn't expect it to happen so quickly. From this most recent experience, I definitely needed to rest on consuming earth essences for a few days, no matter how tantalizing the possibility of reaching a 25 affinity to learn the spell form may be. After a massive meal, I continued my routine, settling into the weasel fur with the Dreamscape amulet and channeled ether into it. Right? Okay. So, yeah. Chapter 193. Parade Armor. Okay. For the next for the next 5 days, I kept to my routine. Flora and Olivia arrived at the same time every day to clean. They told me Rena was doing well, but they barely had a chance to talk to her in the common dining room. My protective nature had me thinking of the two as my younger sisters. As they ate the meal I prepared for them, it was nice to listen to them talk about their days. It added some daily normalcy to being trapped in the tower. Even got them to submit the requisition for the ingredients I needed to make the mouthwash. When it arrived, I stored everything in my dimensional space to retain its freshness. My cooking skills slowly improved, and I managed to make a decent burrito with refried beans, rice, seasoned meat, corn, and a simple salsa made with onions, tomatoes, and chili peppers. I would alternate the meat between beef and chicken. I used the dungeon bear meat as an experiment, and marinating the meat first worked well. I believe I was beginning to understand why Cinna savored the dungeon harvest so much. I practiced with my air shield in the morning, and from my experience, metabolizing the essences, I could feel the ether flowing from my stomach with a very weak essence. Hello, Loco. Welcome. And Macaque, just jumping in to say hi. I have a 3 XMs in a row and out. Oh, let's fucking go. That sounds horrible. Good luck. Yeah, you're strong. You got this, Macaque. Dude, you have been learning. You know all the answers. It will be easy peasy. We believe in you. I started to make extra burritos, grilling them briefly after wrapping them in large wax leaves and then sending them to my dimensional space for consumption later. Over the 5 evenings, I consumed 5 major dexterity essences, an apex essence of insight, 3 major essences for ether tolerance, and 1 apex essence for the illusion affinity. Even with the ring of sustenance, my appetite was voracious with so many essences. Fortunately, I had a full pantry and was testing my cooking skills. Yeah, I'm screwed, but at least it will be a fun. No, Makiek, you will do well. Don't you worry. Everything will be fine. But there will be a VOD. I will upload it as fast as I can. As fast as I can. My illusion affinity increased from 3 to 7. My ether tolerance increased from 42 out of 51 to 48 out of 56. I thought the latter increase also reduced my discomfort from the ether burn, but that could be a placebo effect. I saw diminishing returns from the dexterity essences, but still received a sizable improvement. My dexterity attribute increased from 47 out of 63 to 53 out of 67. Yes, good luck, Makieg. See, even Doggy came and said hello to you. She believes in you. I noticed significant improvements in my physical and dreamscape training due to enhanced dexterity. Through my training in the dreamscape, I realized that my biggest shortfall was my quickness. If I would be just a little faster here and there, I believe I would perform much better against Constantine and Xavier. Maybe it had been wise to choose all the quickness essences in the dungeon. The best I could do now was to train with weighted weapons and boost my quickness through sweat and effort. I made progress on the Earthspeak spell form and felt I had rested my Earth affinity in my other core enough to consume more essences. I had 6 major and 6 minor Earth essences remaining. My current affinity was 19. I would have no difficulty reaching the minimum threshold of 25 for the spell form. I was on the balcony overlooking the city, going through spear forms with the black spear. It was dark, but the sunrise was coming, so I ended my training. Even though I had cleared the bedroom of all furniture, I preferred practicing in the open air on the balcony in the dark. The cool night air and looking down on the speckles of lights in the city below made me feel free and in control. I couldn't practice in the sunlight as there were sight lines from a number of rooftops in the upper city. As the lines of daylight cracked the horizon, the common room door thudded with an impatient, powerful knock. It was much too early for Flora and Livia, so I answered the door cautiously. I swapped the spear for the black blade and opened the door to the stairs. I was bare-chested when I opened the door and was shocked to see the grey-haired Ignis, the master smith, standing there. Ooh. She looked a little surprised at me, looked down at the blade tip resting on the ground, and then back at me. She huffed with a smirk. If you're not going to use your sword on me, move aside. Ignis picked up 2 large bags and walked into the common room, looking around. Haven't been up here in years. Surprised the place is actually clean. She carefully put the bags down, studied the room, and then me. Slowly, a frown formed on her face. Your body has changed. I felt a little self-conscious, so I pulled a shirt from my space and put it on, covering my sweaty torso. I have been training hard, I answered after I covered myself. Well, the shoulder and chest fit may be off, she answered, somewhat annoyed. Should be enough play to get them comfortable. Are you planning to get much bigger? She said, looking me over from the floor up again. Probably, was all I could muster under her gaze. She released a heavy sigh. Well, come see me instead of whining to anyone who will listen that your nipples are shaving off. She reached into one of the bags and handed me 2 pairs of black gloves. Try these on. The seamless gloves easily slid over my hands, and Ignis smirked as I admired the work. I flexed my hand and couldn't tell if I was wearing gloves. Oh, dude, the dream. The pads had a slightly tacky grip, but the material did not stick to itself. Ignis interrupted my appreciation of the final product. Dude, I would love to have that, like, with socks. I hate socks. Like, it's like, if I could have socks that just feels like I'm not wearing socks, dude, that would be amazing. Slid over my hands itself. Ignis interrupted my appreciation of the final product. He incorporated some anti-fire runes into the threading. He felt he needed to add something extra for the value of the surplus material. Magical fire is the only thing that can damage spider silk of that quality, so unless you decide to dance inside of Cinna's flaming dragons, they should last you a lifetime. Probably don't even need the second pair. I could have retorted that she didn't know just how long I would live, but I didn't. Thank you. I can barely feel them. The spellweaver mentioned it was some of the finest material he had the privilege to work with. She winked at me. Had to tell him the Adventurers Guild imported it. He also said it was among his best work. Smirking, she said, Now, you shouldn't have any trouble hiding your ring. My jaw didn't work for a moment as she ignored my surprise. She bent over, unfolding 2 black long-sleeve shirts of the same material from the back. She handed them to me. These also have the fire resistance runes into the threading. He twisted the threads, so the material should also have no tackiness. Dude, goat. I tried on one of the shirts while Ignis watched carefully as I removed my shirt to put on the garment. The satin-like black shirt fit like loose spandex, and I admired the comfort and feel of the material. Ignis nodded at the fit and added, It is durable and resistant to slashing, but not impenetrable. Why am I feeling like Eryk is getting his super suit? Where is his cape? I suggest you wear it only under your armor. Any damage will be nearly impossible for you to repair. The material should be easy to clean and odor-free, but keep it away from lye, or you will lose the black dye. Now, let's get to your armor. Ignis proudly began to unpack the armor she crafted from the 2 large duffel bags. All the pieces were the same shape as my red-dyed, resin-infused Eryk hide, but the chest pieces, pauldrons, graves, and vambraces were metal. I was confused when the armor was a blood-red color instead of the shiny steel of the other Imperial Legionnaires. Is this red enamel? I asked while inspecting the glossy red cuirass. The cuirass had a golden lion in relief on the front, symbolizing the Legion. Ignis scoffed. This is a ceremonial parade armor. Don't be fooled by its beauty. It is fully functional. The red glossy finish is made using ground rust monster antenna and dried chimera blood. Oy. It creates a layer of crimson red on the surface of the steel that can be polished. Each piece has also been inscribed with runes to permanently prevent rust. If those runes fail, the armor will degrade in a few months. I had to admit it looked impressive, and the amount of work that had gone into it was substantial, even assuming magic assisted in the crafting. How durable is the finish? I asked, strapping on the cuirass front and back. It will react just like normal steel. It can be scratched or dented. You will need a master armorsmith for any repairs. Most minor scratches can be buffed out. Her tone switched to forceful. Oy. I don't want to see you in the training yard practicing in this suit. This suit is a status symbol for Chancellor Cinna. Great. I was a trophy dress-up doll for Cinna. Yay! Ignis handed me the final piece of the armor, the helm. Only the helm was steel on my original suit of armor. This helm matched the crimson glossy nature of the rest of the suit, and even though it was also open-faced, it had a face guard that could be slid in and locked, creating a bucket helm. Ignis showed me how it worked, and there were special grooves on the crest to add a plume so I could look like a proper peacock. I donned the helm. I couldn't help it but want to check myself out in a mirror. Okay, I looked pretty epic. Pretty epic. Ignis handed me an orange body shield from the floor of the duffel bag that matched the suit. The last time I used a body shield was in training. This one was much heavier, maybe 20 pounds, and these shields were best used in formation and with a spear or short sword. Most Legionnaire guards prefer the smaller shield, but Cinna wanted this for your guard duty. The front of the shield had the relief of a rich blue kraken outlined in silver. Ooh. That is First Citizen Cinna's crest. The beast looked fearsome, and I assumed the kraken was because her estate was a coastal settlement. She handed me a scabbard for my black blade that matched the ornamental design. We spent 10 minutes adjusting and marking straps before Ignis stepped back. And now my work is done. Ignis put on a genuine smile as she admired her work. It's incredible. Twice as heavy as my old armor, but I look 10 times as good, I stated after removing the helm. Is the armor cooler? I feel a bit cold inside of it. Oh, I thought you meant like as in awesome cool. Am I cool? Just a small side effect of the rust prevention runes. You will be thankful for it standing guard in the sun in midsummer. She started to pack up after placing a beeswax mixture on the table to polish the armor. I took the opportunity to pull the book on metalsmithing, a teapot from my dimensional space, and placed it on the table. Would this be useful to you? Ignis' aged face wrinkled in distaste when she recognized the writing. It's in Elvish. She still opened the ancient tome and immediately became interested. She completely ignored me as she paged through the book from front to back, studying the images. She looked up, breathing heavily in excitement. Where did you get this? Ruins of Kaelora. A few books were salvageable, and I was able to grab a few, I said indifferently. You have more? She stepped eagerly toward me before she regained some composure. The techniques inside are enlightening, and I can't even read the text. I will need to get this translated. She swept the book protectively under her arm, holding it reverently. So it is valuable, I said, unable to hold a smirk back. The old smith narrowed her eyes, magnifying her crow's feet. What do you want for it, Legionnaire? What did I want for the book? It was mostly useless to me now that I had a copy in the dreamscape. I needed many things. I needed to get to the Adventurers Guild Hall to see Tarvin to purchase some Revelation scrolls. That might be too suspicious, though. I carried these out of Kaelora too. Can you clean or repair these? I pulled a rusty 12 elven daggers, 10 elven hand axes, and 2 damaged elven axes from my dimensional space. Wow, he is not fucking like hiding his big of a space here. He's like, okay, this is all I have. Ignis quickly recognized expert craftsmanship. Neptune's beard. How big are you, Legionnaire? Exactly. She put the book down to examine the weapons. She studied each weapon and frowned at the 2 hand axes I had used to hack the vines on the floor of the shimmering labyrinth. All are exceptionally fine work. She looked at me differently this time. Still, I will admit, cleaning and honing the edges on these blades would not be fair compensation for this book. She placed her hand protectively on it like I might steal it back at any moment. I also want sheaths for them all. A swordsman's shield for my parade armor, and I could use a replacement short sword with a sheath as well. The last was to gain a sheath for the Mage's Bane spider blade. I might need to carry it in the future. The quality of the short sword will be up to you to establish for fair compensation. Ignis looked at the assortment of weapons and the book as she contemplated. She finally said, "Agreed, and I will keep its origin to myself." That was a point I was going to bring up, so I just nodded gratefully. "You indicated you have other tomes," she asked, almost pleadingly. "It is something we can discuss at another time," I said as I began removing the armor. Ignis regretfully could tell I was not going to reveal more to her today, and she carefully collected the weapons before leaving. I was worried I was showing too much, but I had the opportunity to get my dimensional space in order while I had some time. I was hoping Cinna's relationship with Ignis would prove the craftswoman a silent ally. I carefully stored the armor in my small room next to my bird Eryk hide armor. I returned to the alchemy lab to prepare for my first attempt at alchemy. It was getting close to noon when the doors in the common room flung open. The thought of the doors opening hard into the wall had me pull the Magebane blade to my hand. Had Ignis betrayed me so quickly? "What in Pluto's abyss?" a familiar voice rang from the other room. "The bastard is living in luxury while we have to sleep on hard bunks. I bet he's drinking wine and eating ambrosia every night." Oh my god, legionnaires. Maybe its deep voice reverberated through the suites, responding to Mateo's announcement. "I'm sure the mage is keeping Eryk very busy." Benito's voice answered. "I bet she is. She was pretty well shaved for a mage. She's probably working him really hard." Oh my god. Constantine's harsh voice cut through the rabble. "If High Mage Cinna is in these apartments and heard you say that, she would roast you alive, Benito. And I wouldn't move to stop her. Maybe I would even encourage her." The entire place was suddenly deathly silent, and the men from my company listened for movement. I returned the Magebane blade and moved silently through the connecting rooms. I emerged from the kitchen to the common room to see 6 men from the company on alert for the dangerous high mage. Constantine was hiding a smirk at the unease of the other men. I smiled at the group. "She's not here." They all exhaled in relief, and tension left their bodies. "What brings you by today?" I asked, smiling at my companions. I thought they already had left, like I didn't think I would see them now again. Maybe it spoke for the group. "We came to say goodbye." Oh, "We leave in the morning." Constantine said he could get us into the Mage College. I looked over the group of Mateo, Maviath, Benito, Constantine, Blaze, and Lurkin. "Well, it is lunchtime. Come on in and I will whip you up something." Lurkin volunteered to help, and we moved into the kitchen. Oh. Oh. This I like. Yay. Finally. Chapter 194. Misinterpreting my situation. Oh no. Will Eryk misinterpret his situation, or will maybe these legionnaires misinterpret his situation? They certainly will, because they have no fucking idea. We moved into the kitchen, and the men grabbed stools, making lots of noise with their scraping armor, banter, and scuffing boots. I didn't realize how quiet it had been away from the company. I kind of missed the bustle. Lurkin helped me make the burritos, while Mateo grabbed one of the many casks of ale from the larder at my direction. He came back confused. "How many people live here? There is enough food for 2 companies in there." I was grinding the dried spices with a mortar and pestle to season the meat. "Just me. The Chancellor is rarely here." "Why is it so cold in there?" He gestured at the room while prepping the casks to fill mugs. I didn't feel in the mood to explain the heat sink, so I just said, "Magic." Mateo grunted in acceptance and was already passing around mugs. It took a while to get the first burrito finished, even though I had the tortillas already made. After a week in the city, I learned the company was finally well rested. Mateo managed to snag the first burrito and talked while he ate. "Our new porter is a dullard, Eryk. He holds his spear backwards and farts in his sleep like a bullfrog." Lurkin commented as he worked on wrapping the next burrito. "So do you, but at least it keeps the goblins away in the woods." Mateo looked shocked at the accusation, but eventually just shrugged, not denying it, and took another bite. I noted that the refried beans in the wrap would wake the company tonight. Oh no. Maviath, seeing it was going to be a while before the food got to him, took a loaf of cheese and herb bread and slathered butter on it. He started chewing. "What is this, Eryk? It is marvelous." "It's a recipe from one of the porter's wives. It is some type of holiday bread, I think. It is supposed to be coated in a special herb cream cheese and not butter. I hadn't tried all those loose recipes, but this was one of them. I agreed the cheese bread was quite good, with 2 types of soft cheeses inside and a crusty caramelized cheese on the outside. Oh, give. It was still a pain to bake, as I had to manually adjust the oven for the hour of baking to avoid burning it. And now maybe it just consumed the entire loaf. Oh no. All my labor was undone in less than a minute. Constantine had been surprisingly quiet, just observing us contentedly. It was clear he had brought them here as a favor to me, even if he wouldn't admit it. As the burritos were passed out, he took one and made a surprisingly happy face while tasting it. It didn't take him long to finish it. He muttered something about me not being a bad cook, but I couldn't make it out clearly through everyone talking. The conversation turned to matcha and the rumors of the growing shadow of the larger war. They were unaware of the Bhutan Caliphate orcs massing a fleet, and I didn't tell them as it would ruin the afternoon. They did not know about the S&M elves, which was common knowledge, and there was a growing outcry among the people to reclaim Amatalhos Isle. They did know about an SML. They did know about elves. The doors to the common room opened loudly, and the company went silent at the intrusion. Flora's voice rang through the apartments. Eryk, you can work as hard today. We can just soak in the tub later to get clean. Oh my god. This author? Their children. Their children. The pronouncement was made worse as she was taking off her robes and entering the kitchen. Livia a step behind. Misinterpreting my... I understand now. Holy shit. The color drained from Flora's face on seeing the 5 legionnaires in armor and the massive Goliath. Her eyes were focused up on Maviath as it was probably the first Goliath she had seen, at least one this close. Lurkin mumbled, "Thought you said you were alone, and here we felt sorry for you and thought you needed some companionship." Matteo tripped over himself to introduce himself first. "Matteo Evander." He bowed awkwardly. "They are just mage aspirants here to be disciplined." I interrupted the group's confusion and inappropriate conclusions. Only Matteo had made a fool of himself, and the 2 young mages were just 16. Of course, that was a reasonable age for marriage in the Empire. Of course. Both mages had started to fill out with their gluttonous appetites and were no longer bone thin. Maybe I would have considered them attractive if I hadn't thought of them as younger sisters who needed my protection. Now they needed my protection from my friends. Maybe its deep voice echoed, somewhat accusatory, causing Livia and Flora to jump. "You have to discipline them, Eryk." Before more speculation could be made, I ended it. They are mages at the college. They got in trouble and come up here to clean every day. I usually cook them something for their efforts. Some doubtful looks appeared, and the 2 young women looked lost and mute under the gaze of 7 men, clearly intimidated. I ordered them to get to work. The walls in the west guest room still need scrubbing. The pair hurried off, glad to escape the uncomfortable scrutiny. Constantine stood. "Finish your ales and head back to Legion Hall. We stank up Eryk's kitchen enough. He approached me and handed me a wrapped package. From the company. Oh, what is this? He spoke softly next so only I could hear. "When you join the Hounds, always be aware of your surroundings, and don't embarrass me." He turned smoothly and walked out first. I said goodbye to the others as they rushed to finish their drinks, some getting a quick second. Maybe it was last and engulfed me in a quick hug. "Remember you promised to come with me to Stone Mountain Island," he said gruffly. "I will." I pulled the second ring of sustenance I got from Traeliorn. "Take this. It has the same functionality as my ring." Maybe it stared at the ring momentarily before his hand closed around it, nodding gratefully. "Oh, Eryk, I know we will meet again." Oh, I love him. The Goliath gave my shoulder a last pat and left the suite. The door shut, and all I could hear was the 2 mage aspirants whispering on the other side of the tower. I looked at the wrapped package and cut the twine. A large package of griffin jerky was on top of some new underclothes and new Legion boots. I nibbled on the griffin jerky, which had been seasoned with Kraken salt. It was easily the most valuable thing in the bundle. The boots were new and would need to be broken in. It was a thoughtful gift, and I moved everything to my crowded dimensional space. I continued to cook, and when the sunset came, my two ravenous dependents feasted. After consuming her first burrito and a side of diced fruit, Livy asked, "Was that a giant?" "Who? Maybe it." "No, he's just a Goliath." "First time seeing one?" I responded, sipping the now warm ale. It was actually pretty smooth and not bitter. "Goliath? I think one of the gladiators in the Colosseum is a Goliath, but I've never seen one so close," Flora added to the conversation. "Where is the Colosseum?" I asked. I had heard about it in passing. "The western side of the city in the upper district. It can hold 20,000 people," Livia replied confidently. She grew up in the lower city and was familiar with the districts. Her father was a glassblower, and her mother carved corks. She lived up to her name when she was in a familiar company, constantly smiling with a congenial attitude. Are the gladiators who fight slaves? Are the gladiators who fight slaves? I asked, recalling my history of the Roman Empire on Earth. Livia scrunched her face in thought. "I don't think so. Most are adventurers or professional warriors, but they do fight prisoners, captured orc pirates, barbarian soldiers, and fantastical creatures from the Imperial Zoo. It costs 5 large silver for admittance and only happens on the day of the full moon each month." "When is the next full moon?" I asked curiously. "Day after next, I think," Laura said immediately, leaning back and rubbing her belly. She had consumed 2 massive burritos and was having trouble on the third. We talked for a while about their day. Their harassment had lessened somewhat since my arrival, but they still had their nemesis classmates who tormented them. I patiently let them vent until they expressed all their anger. "You two can use the bathroom and then return to your rooms," I said, dismissing them. The excited mage aspirant started to sprint, but thought better of it after their gluttony. I cleaned up, and after the two left an hour later, I returned to the alchemy lab and worked on my first potion. I meticulously went through the steps, mixed the purified ingredients, added the sapphire dust, and then added a touch of ether. The potion flared weakly and settled. A strong, minty scent hung in the air. That had not been overly difficult. It had taken nearly a day to brew just a few dozens of mouthwash, but I had been successful. Of course, this was one of the simplest potions. The basic healing salve recipe was among the books Sina had procured for me. I wrote out the list of ingredients, adding another batch for mouthwash, but changing the type of mint leaves I would use. It was close to midnight when I finally settled into my weasel pelts. The next morning, I woke just after dawn and had to complete my training inside the room rather than on the exposed balcony. A door opened and the change in air pressure alerted me that someone was in the apartment. I found Sina in the common room, lounging on the sofa. She looked tired but smiled on seeing me. "I see you fortunately failed to get into any more trouble while I was away." I sat across from her. "It has been very quiet. I haven't seen Rena, but Flora and Livia have been feeding me the local gossip." Sina smirked knowingly. "I will check on Rena today, and you will see her this afternoon. If you have your armor, you can accompany me to class." "Oh, finally." I nodded appreciatively. Ignis delivered it. It is quite exquisite. A true piece of art. "Excellent. One less problem to address. I'm going to nap here for an hour, and you can follow me down to the classroom." The fire mage closed her eyes and ignored me. She had dark rings under her eyes, and I guessed she might not have slept much recently. I would ask her after the class about the possibility of going to the Colosseum tomorrow. Not because I wanted to watch people kill each other, but because I was hoping to observe some skilled fighters to incorporate into my dreamscape. I woke Sina and then followed her down to the first floor of the tower. I didn't carry the shield, but I strapped on my black blade. Sina's demeanor switched from haggard and tired to stern and commanding as she entered the classroom. 9 mages in grey robes sat in chairs across the room. One was Rena, and her gaze lingered on me for a moment, but I had my face guard on, so she might not realize it was me. Who else would it be? Duh. "Hello, Wade, I didn't see you. You are so late." "Indeed, but there's still 2 chapters left." But hello, welcome. Anyway. Late or not late, anyone's welcome. Sina stepped to the front of the room. A fire whip snapped in the air, causing the mages to jump. "I have returned." What an entrance. I hope you all have gained some competency with your fire mage during my absence. Imagine your math teacher coming into the room with a whip. It's like, I have returned. I stood next to the door with attention. Senna gestured at me. My shiny new legionnaire. If you see him within the college, know he speaks for me and follow all his instructions as you would mine. She studied the terrified students, picking one with a malicious grin forming on her face. Mage Rufus, show me your fire weave. A young man stood shakily and weaved a spell form slowly between his hands. His face was sweating as a circle of red flame formed after a few seconds with green flashes appearing in it. I thought it was impressive, but Cinna was not happy. Her face clouded in anger. Mage Rufus, what have you been doing for the last week? You are still mixing other affinities with your fire. How many times do I need to tell you that when writing out your spell forms for fire magic, you must purify the ether through your fire aspect on your core? Rufus stuttered. I can't control. I will do better. It is so much smaller. Threading a needle. The fire whip cracked again, cutting him off. You will not practice your water magic again until you can show me pure fire magic. Rufus looked ready to object, but wisely closed his mouth and nodded, falling relieved into his chair. Cinna's eyes traveled over to Rena, who was hiding a grin. Cinna gave her a barely imperceptible nod of encouragement. Mage Rena, hopefully you can restore my faith in this class potential. Show me your flaming spear. Rena stood, her face focused as she formed the spell forms between her hands. It was slow but much faster than Rufus. An arrow-sized line of fire sipped from the spell form directly at Cinna. Cinna's ether shield flared as the arrow harmlessly splashed against it. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed, her orbs became flames, and she licked her lips. All the students recoiled at the expected retaliation. Not only was that attack weak, but you also formed the spell form much too slowly. In battle, you would have a dozen arrows in you by the time you cast it. You need more focus. Maybe oiling every piece of furniture in my apartment will help you clear your mind to focus. My apartment's after the midday meal for the next week. Okay. Her voice dripped with venom. Most of the other grey robe mages snickered at Rena. I thought Cinna's acting was a little over the top. Rena was having trouble hiding her smile, happy at the punishment. The rest of the class proceeded for the next 3 hours. After High Mage Cinna had assessed each student's progress, she began actually teaching, albeit with condescension and a harsh tone. The only thing I really understood from the whole lesson was that spell forms for fire spells needed a high purity of fire ether. The higher the fire affinity, the more powerful the spell form woven with fire affinity ether. When the lunch bell rang, the grey robe mages couldn't move fast enough to leave the classroom. I climbed the stairs back to their apartments, Cinna grumbling the entire time about how much of those mages would be dead in their first real battle. So, now that people have seen me in my armor, am I free to walk the college grounds? The fire mage considered before responding. Yes, after my other class tomorrow morning. Can I go to the Colosseum tomorrow? Asked like, Mom, am I allowed to go out tomorrow? My question had Cinna pause on the steps to look at me. Are there games tomorrow? Figures the Emperor would continue hosting them while the Empire is balancing on the tip of a needle. Keep them entertained and they shall be too distracted to worry. She assessed me with an inquisitive stare. Why do you wish to attend? Just curiosity, and mostly to study the gladiators and monsters fighting. Cinna nodded and continued up the stairs. Antonia has a box we can use. We can go together. Oh, it has been a while since I attended. It's a date. I cooked Cinna's lunch, and she left to perform her chancellor duties. A few hours after lunch, Rena, Flora, and Livy arrived. All of them were eager for their day's punishment. Rena wore an increasable grin on her face as I ordered her to work. Inerasable grin. I finally had something to look forward to myself, after being constrained to these apartments. Seeing the Colosseum. Let's fucking go. I'm also happy to go somewhere else. Okay. Orcs. Nice tats. Chapter 195. Bloodsport. Rena was tasked with oiling the furniture and decided to work in the kitchen while I prepped dinner. The oil had a lovely beeswax, lemon, and oil scent. She was being overly overtly obvious about her interest in talking with me after I had not seen her for almost a week. She asked about my food preparation and offered to help. I deflected her help and kept her on task, but we talked about her progress with her spells, classmates, and what rumors had reached the students regarding the war with the Barbaradians. I learned a lot about Rena, and her views of the world had definitely broadened since she joined Castile's company for the Bullet and Griffin hunt. I believe she displayed a proper level of cynicism of the Empire while we talked. She was still promised to one of the Emperor's sons, but the Empire needed powerful combat mages at the moment. No one had even mentioned her impending marriage to her in months. I think every wood surface in the kitchen got at least 3 coats of oil that afternoon. At sunset, Flora and Livia came to the kitchen, and I served them all a new recipe I had tried. The food was one of the loose recipes in the folio. The noodles came out a bit chewy, and the tomato-based sauce was a little watery, but no one complained. Flora asked anxiously as she ate my attempt at spicy meatballs and spaghetti. "Are you coming with us on our hunt?" "I believe so. Do you know what you will be hunting yet?" I asked as I tried making another batch of noodles using a different, finer flour. Flora shrugged. "We were told we would be going to the farms west of the capital, a half day in a covered cart. Some signs of lesser green goblins were spotted, large foxes getting after chickens, wolves taking down sheep, and some large rats getting into the grain stores." I nodded while kneading the dough. With the food shortage in the Empire, that grain was probably highly precious. "Are you coming with me to hunt gnolls?" Rena said while slurping up some noodles and unknowingly splattered the sauce on her robes. "Yes, I believe Chancellor Cinna is going to assign me as your legionnaire bodyguard." Rena's face instantly lit up, and she couldn't hide her smile. Her cheeks and chin speckled with sauce. I fought back a laugh. "She said I would talk to you about your enemies so that I would be aware of whom I should be watching. Were there any in the class with you today?" Rena beamed happily, then her brow furrowed. "I think she means First Citizen Mage Cassius? Dude, Cassius. My god, what a name. And his twin sister, Ona." "Ona? Both are just water mages, and we're not in class today." Cringe. Just water mages? Rip. They also have a number of henchmen who do their bidding, and Cassius has a malicious legionnaire bodyguard too. She bit her lip worriedly as she talked. Dude, I cannot get over Cassius. Like, Cassius. That's the snobbiest bitch-ass name I've ever heard. "Well, let me know who they are when we travel to the Eastern Forest. Chancellor Cinna and other mage instructors will be with us, so I don't think there will be any issues," I reassured her. Cinna took this moment to walk into the kitchen. I wondered how long she had been listening. Her eyes traveled over the group, a look of disappointment on her face. "Clean your faces and show some decorum while eating." The young women grabbed the gray napkins to wipe their faces hastily. "If you 3 have finished your bellies, you can leave." The 2 young mage aspirants, still anxious in Cinna's presence, left immediately. Rena lingered for a moment, but eventually departed without saying anything. I retrieved Cinna's dinner. I had finally used the intestine casings Maviath had prepared in the dungeon to make some bear sausage. I boiled them in beer and then grilled them. I thought it was a failure, as it was overspiced, too lean and dry. Cinna didn't seem to mind and quickly devoured the 3 thick links I placed before her. When finished, she put a thick book on the table. I peeked at the title, Poisons and Powders for the Tier 1 Alchemist. Oy. Cinna sipped some wine and commented on the book. There are some useful things in there. How to purify myconid spores, blindness powder, sneezing powder, flash powder, smoke powder, and others. There are a few different ingredient combinations for each potential effect. "Thank you. I will take a look in my free time tomorrow," I said, wiping my hand and paging through the book. Cinna took my gratitude with a nod. "You won't have time tomorrow. After the morning class, we will head to the Colosseum to see the games, as you requested. Antonia is not in the city, so we will not see her, but I may need to entertain others in Antonia's box. You will wear your armor and carry your body shield. You will stand in the back of the box, but still have a good view of the arena's hands." "What is the class tomorrow?" I inquired. "Basic spellcraft for mage aspirants. Your 2 lost sheep are not in it. They are promising mages, but not in the top class. The class is for those that are close to forming their first true spell," Cinna informed me, while dabbing her mouth with the cloth and holding in a burp. Cinna left me to clean up. I would have asked for her to get me help with the basic chores, but I was still sore from Lorene's betrayal and wary of spending too much time with women. Dude, fuck Lorene. Oh, don't even mention her name. After cleaning the kitchen, I consumed a major earth essence and retired to my room in the dreamscape. I added the Tier 1 poison book to my library and then studied the spell form before training with Constantine and Maviev. After a few hours in the dreamscape, I was back on the balcony under the cool night air, doing my physical training. The sky was clear this morning, and Neptune's tear lit the city eerily below. Street lights lined the upper city streets, and other lights bounced among the streets, with people moving purposely in the pre-dawn city below. I moved inside to practice my sword forms when the sun cracked the horizon. I still found it odd how the muscle memory from the dreamscape translated so readily to actual world practice. I wasn't going to become a sword master in just a few weeks of work in the dreamscape, but my gains were much more rapid, and I could risk experimentation there without fear of permanent injury. I found Cinna working on the oven in the kitchen. Had she been watching me train? She looked up, fresh soot covering her arms and cheeks. You must charge the regulator runes in concert with the thermal stone, but your oven should work. I hope this will help you improve your cooking skills. I took note that she didn't criticize my efforts to date. We will leave it an hour for class. Cinna left me in the kitchen after appreciatively taking in my sweaty, naked torso. After she left, it didn't take long to figure out the oven. The new runic device had 4 temperature settings. I suited up in my parade armor, and while I waited on Cinna, I studied the alchemist's book on poisons. It was not as impressive as it sounded. It was more of a primer for more complex poisons and powders. Not a single recipe inside required gem dust and ether as a catalyst. All the recipes were about purifying and mixing ingredients. The myconid spore seemed to be one of the primary ingredients for this type of alchemy. All the powders use the spores as a medium for delivery. I first learned of the spores from Constantine as a means to obscure your scent from animals and beasts. It only took a tiny amount of the purified powder to block the smell receptors in the nose completely. Don't forget your shield, Cinna stated, smirking when exiting her room. She was dressed in more formal robes with golden embroidery. I grunted as I was not too fond of the large body shield with the kraken, house symbol. Kraken, house symbol. It was cumbersome and designed to be used in formation, and I think the only reason she had it made was so her house crest would be easily identified when I escorted her. At least it could be easily rested on the floor when I was standing guard. I led our 2-person procession, and Cinna directed me from behind to across the courtyard to another tower. The classroom was full of tables with nervous white-robed mage aspirants fidgeting in their seats. They all looked so young and innocent, like Flora and Livia. I positioned myself at the door, getting uncomfortable glances from the students. Cinna began the class, which was very basic. The Chancellor was still imperious in her tone and speech, but she also had nuggets of wisdom if you paid attention to her terse comments. Being able to filter others through the correct aspect of your core was paramount to casting powerful magics. The class was focused on the second step for spell formation, ether control and manipulation. When the class ended after 3 long hours, Cinna collected me, and we walked through the grounds again. "Why are you teaching such a rudimentary class?" I asked the high mage 2 steps behind me. Cinna clicked her tongue in what I assumed was amusement. "Would you believe I enjoy it? That is true, but I also want to identify those among the mage aspirants with the highest likelihood of becoming true mages." That made sense. "Is your interest in them because of Antonia?" There was a pause as we passed the outer wall guards and entered the streets of the upper city. "Partly," she admitted, and didn't elaborate further as she directed me toward our destination. I walked in front of the Chancellor as we headed toward the Colosseum. I like to think the crowds parted for me in my impressive armor, but it was the Chancellor's robes that the populace recognized, and they paused in their evening activities to clear the road and watch us pass. The path to the city's western side proceeded rapidly, and we reached a massive circular building with Roman arches and columns surrounded by a wide plaza. Stone mosaics decorated the plaza, depicting various fearsome creatures. Men and women in extravagant and colorful clothes shopped the various vendor carts dotting the plaza. Pairs of legionnaires, not city guards, patrolled this plaza. The Colosseum was less impressive in scope than I recalled of the one in Rome back on Earth. Imperial legionnaires guarded entrances as Cinna ignored the merchants' carts. She took the lead as we entered the structure and quickly made our way through the brightly lit interior halls to a covered box on the first level of the arena. The arena looked impressive, but was nothing compared to the sports stadiums I was used to back on Earth. The sports stadiums. The first level, just above the stands, had dozens of private boxes close to the action. Bench seating went up into the stands, and another ring of box seatings was at the very top. I guessed that the entire stadium could hold maybe 15,000, but the 20,000 I was told. Not the 20,000 I was told. There were 7 seats in the private box, and Senna motioned for me to stand at the back. This is Antonia's box. You'll stand against the wall. If not sure if anyone will join us today, but stay still and silent if they do. A young man in a light brown toga entered after her statement. Chancellor High Mage, your pleasure? Wine and fruit, she said, waving him away. He bowed formally and left. I took my position against the wall and waited. Large trays of cut fruit were delivered with multiple pitchers of cold wine. Senna just poured a single goblet of red wine and sipped it. We were considerably early, and a number of colorful dressed men and women visited the box to pay their respects to High Mage as we waited for the stands to fill. I could tell Senna was doing business with brief conversations, but was too far back to discern what was being spoken as the murmuring crowd noise got louder and louder. The stadium was filled with vibrantly dressed nobles of the capital. Drab brown-dressed servants rushed among them to accommodate their requests. Clearly, this venue was for the sole entertainment of the privileged. That was different from what I remembered in my history. The Roman emperors of Earth used the games to entertain and impress the ordinary citizens of Rome, as well as the wealthy. A horn sounded, and Senna was left in the box alone. Apparently, no one else was using Antonia's box today. The stands were about 90% full. I realized there were 2 upper walkways that increased capacity by providing additional standing room. I reevaluated my estimates of the capacity of the Colosseum. My thoughts were interrupted as a troupe of tumblers and acrobats trailing streamers entered the sandy arena floor. The group put on an amazing display with their acrobatics heights, rotations, and power. I had to remember that magic was likely involved with their athletic displays. A man in shimmering black robes floated down from above. At first, I thought this man might be the Emperor himself, but his booming voice echoed in the stadium. I welcome you once again to the Emperor's Games. We have 20 contestants this evening. The crowd cheered, drowning him out. The structure's acoustics were impressive as I felt the stone beneath my feet vibrate from the crowd's roar. But then again, it might just be aided by magic. When the crowd settled, he continued. Our first contest is between champion Cassian the Red and his challenger Herculianus the Wall. The champion got the loudest cheers, and 2 men in shiny steel armor entered. The armor was only the cuirass and helm, but leather skirts and wraps protected other vital areas. Cassian had a round blood-red shield in his left hand and a medium-length blade in his other. The challenger was easily a foot tall. Oh my god. The challenger was easily a foot taller and had a mace and white shield. As I watched the pair fight, I quickly became disgusted. It was a noisy show for the screaming spectators, with frequent strikes on the shields and cuirass. The 2 fighters were obviously quick and skilled, but Cassian passed numerous advantages to draw out the fight. Herculianus was bleeding from a dozen cuts while he never connected solidly once with Cassian. The fight finally ended when Herculianus had slowed too much from blood loss and conceded. Cassian removed his helmet in victory, his black hair matted with sweat. The smile on his middle-aged face was fabricated as he turned slowly and waved to his fans. I was certain the champion could defeat me easily in true combat as he had held back and fought down to his opponent's level to give a good show. I stepped forward, seeing an opportunity. Excuse me? What the fuck do you think you're doing? What is that? She's so fucking fast and she's yeah. Don't like you to taking up stuff from the ground and just swallowing it. No! It will go away with time. But damn. Where was I? Easily through combat, fought to his level. Yeah. Seeing an opportunity. I whispered to Cinna through the crowd noise. Can someone hire the gladiators for private lessons? Cinna turned, a smirk on her face. You wish to become a gladiator now? Just a better warrior, I stated flatly. After fighting for my life so many times, I was kind of disgusted with this entertainment spectacle. I will inquire. Cinna turned back to watch the combat. 4 more pairs of gladiators fought in the sands, and I became less and less impressed with the spectacle and skill displayed. The 6th match of the afternoon was 8 Barbarian soldiers, 4 humans, 3 elves, and a dwarf. Their armor had dried blood, but none of them displayed any injuries. One of the humans was clearly in charge as he organized the group. The gladiators who had won the first 5 contests reappeared in the arena to oppose the prisoners of war. What happened next was not a fight but a slaughter. The common Barbarian soldiers were clearly outclassed, and the gladiators were trying to cause as much pain and bloodshed as possible. The crowd was enjoying the unbalanced contest. One gladiator made a small error and got tackled by an elf and momentarily restrained. Absolutely not. Why have you started doing this shit? No. You've never been on furniture before, you little shit. You little shit. You can't do that. No. You shit. No. No, I say no. Momentarily restrained. The dwarf scrambled and drove his blade under the shin of the felled gladiator, up and into his brain. There would be no healing the gladiator from that injury. The dwarf was beheaded by Cassian a heartbeat later, to the satisfaction of the roaring crowd. Damn. After the floor of the arena was cleared, the next display was more gore. 3 unarmed brown goblins were released while a beast tamer and his monstrous black cat hunted them around the arena. Without weapons, the goblins had no chance as the sizable cat clawed and tore their bodies apart one by one. The next 3 fights of the day were honored duels between first citizens. The announcer spent minutes explaining the duel and what was at stake for the victor and loser. The combatants had some skill, but when a serious injury occurred, a healing mage rushed out to treat it, ending the fight. Usually this occurred with boos from the bloodthirsty crowd. There was a pause in the combat as 3 mages entered the arena and proceeded to cast large illusions of various creatures. A hydra 40 feet tall with 9 independent necks whipping about was the most impressive illusion and got the most awes and appreciation from the crowd. I hoped I never encountered such a beast personally. With the intermission finished, 4 large bare-chested grey-skinned humanoids were marched out onto the sands with their wrists shackled. I recognized the race from my dreamscapes. Orcs. Those orcs had elaborate black, red, and white tattoos across their upper bodies and faces. I recognized the intertwining lines immediately for what they were. Spell forms. While the announcer was detailing these pirates' crimes, I asked Cinna, "Are those spell forms?" "Yes, this is the highlight of the evening. I doubt those warriors are pirates, as they are proclaiming. The orc shamans grind up essences and embed spell forms in the flesh of their elite warriors. Those orcs are elite warriors of the Caliphate, stronger, faster, and more durable in battle than common orcs. The only drawback to the method is how rapidly the tattoos draw ether to maintain their spell forms." Cinna studied the 4 orcs, who looked disdainfully up at the crowd. "I'm guessing they have already been drained of their ether and cannot activate their spell forms," Cinna said as she assessed the situation below. The opponents of the orcs were 4 men in Imperial Legion armor. The orcs held their hands to the crowd to show they were shackled and couldn't fight. It didn't take much to figure out this fight was to show how superior the legionnaires were to the elite orc warriors of the Bhutan Caliphate. The orcs were given impressively large blades and wooden shields, but no armor. When the stage was set, the restraints fell from their wrists into the sands. One of the orcs roared in concert with the crowd and charged. The skilled Imperial Legionnaires worked in pairs while the 4 orcs fought independently. I could tell the orcs had the strength advantage as their strikes stumbled the Legionnaires, but their insistence on not working together quickly worked against them as the first of their number was hamstrung and limping. Oh. At least I was getting the opportunity to witness real life and death combat between skilled opponents on both sides. The Legionnaires were not trying to draw out the fight for the crowd, but were fighting to finish the orcs as quickly as possible. The crippled orc was soon killed with a thrust through its eye. The death of their companion enraged the other 3, and one suddenly moved much faster than before. Unfortunately, as Cinna had noted, the orc didn't have a lot of ether to sustain his physical enhancement from the tattoo. The Legionnaire he closed with blocked the flurry of attacks expertly and slashed his throat when he slowed after a few heartbeats. He didn't die quick, gurgling and foaming blood as he tried to take his killer with him to Pluto's gates. But when enough blood drained, he slowly slumped to the sands, with the crowd responding with loud approval. The remaining 2 orcs finally decided to work together, getting back to back against the 4 uninjured Legionnaires. It was too late, and the fight ended 10 minutes after the orcs sustained many injuries. One thing I was sure of was these elite orcs of the Caliphate were dangerous. By my estimation, the Imperial Legionnaires I had just watched were master swordsmen and veterans. They would have lost if the 4 orcs warriors had worked together, had armor, and had access to their ether. Even now, I could tell the intense 20-minute fight had exhausted them. Have you seen enough? The remaining contest will be a disappointment after that, Cinna asked me, looking up. I realized I had left my station on the wall and I crowded behind Cinna's seat for the entire fight. She seemed amused at my closeness. Yes, thank you for taking me, I replied as I watched the cleanup crew come out for the bodies. We soon returned through the crowds back to the Mage College. Damn, okay, so I guess we're gonna be meeting some fucking spell-infused orcs in the future. That's gonna be a fucking pain in the ass. Oh, you brought me. Okay. Yeah. I wonder how long it's gonna take for us to get to the hounds. I assume that it is very soon. Other than that, I don't know what's gonna happen next. Like, I'm just waiting for the hounds now, I guess. But we will see what happens next time. And hello, Maori. Came in right at the end. It's going good, thanks. Except that my dog is eating my furniture. But yeah, that would be it for the day. Very good chapter, very good. Yeah, anyway, yeah, okay. Yes, that will be all for me today. We will play some Wawas to end. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted. Oh. Oh, jävlar. Oh, there we go. There we go. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. I managed to do the whole reading. Fucking good job, me. Oh. Feel free to follow me on all my socials. I do the Pokemon Fusion on Blue Sky. We do upload Willow pictures and videos on Instagram. We do the YouTube channel and the VOD channel and the Twitch, of course. And then we have a Discord server which you can feel free to join in too. I would appreciate that. Thank you so much. And that will be it for me today. And maybe I'll be back tomorrow, even though it's a Wednesday, we will see. Otherwise, Thursday is the next scheduled stream. So, I will see you then. Have a nice rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Hey, bye bye. You too, Diamond Cat. You too, JP. Bye.